All right, so today the guy that believes in Thor is going to talk to you about superstition. So today we define superstition as an excessive credulousness towards the supernatural, such as believing that a house is haunted because it creaks. Because of the wording of that definition, it leads to a lot of miscommunication on what is actually meant by superstition. People talk past each other on this. Some hold that superstition is limited to, say, a luck-inspired behavior, like, what we see with athletes and maybe a particular pair of lucky shorts. Others hold to an idea so broad that any religious or God-related belief is superstition. So, because of how wide this definition is, I want to focus it using descriptions of superstition from the past. So, Theophrastus, a Greek philosopher whose study of plants contributed greatly to the development of botany during the Renaissance, was a student of Aristotle and wrote on a variety of subjects. Among the subjects that he discusses is superstition from the perspective of a polytheistic culture. And here he writes the portrait of a superstitious man. The superstitious man is one who will wash his hands at a fountain, sprinkle himself at the temple front, and put a bit of laurel leaf in his mouth, and then go about his day. If a weasel runs across his path, he will not pursue his walk until someone else has traversed the road, or until he has thrown 3 stones across it. And when he sees a serpent in his house, if it be a red snake, he will invoke Sabazius. If it is a sacred snake, he will straightway place a shrine on the spot, and he will pour oil from his flask onto the smooth stones at the crossroad. And as he goes by, he will fall to his knees and worship them before he departs. He continues, he is apt also to purify his house frequently, alleging that Hecate has been brought into it by spells. And if an owl is startled by him on his walk, he will exclaim, "Glory be to Athena," before he proceeds. He will not tread upon a tombstone or come near a dead body or a woman defiled by childbirth, saying that it is expedient for him not to be polluted. And he writes further, he would seem, too, to be one of those who are scrupulous in sprinkling themselves with seawater. And if ever he observes anyone feasting on the garlic at the crossroads, he will go away, pour water over his head, and, summoning the priestess, bid them carry a squill or a puppy around him for purification. And if he sees a maniac or an epileptic man, he will shudder and spit into his bosom. This image is of a man whose life is so dominated by religious practice that he cannot even function. Many of these practices can be found in other texts as elements of worship and practice, and even this text gives some insight into what practices may have existed during that day. But it can also be noted, given that Theophrastus writes with this charge of superstition, that such an overwhelming adherence to every single practice was seen as strange even in an age where belief in multiple gods was commonplace. Theophrastus states, as a thesis, that he believes superstition is cowardice with regards to the supernatural or spiritual. But there also seems to be an implication in history that a certain fear of the gods was reasonable, so simple fear of the supernatural wouldn't really help focus. So I think a good place to draw the line would be when this frustrates your ability to function. So I offer the following definition, that superstition is fear of the gods and or supernatural to the extent that it impedes on the life, liberty, or well-being of yourself or others. Now, applying this changes the nature of a lot of our conversation on religion and society. Simple God belief isn't necessarily the problem. Superstition is the issue. Christians and Muslims often apply their beliefs as fear of their God, making this idea of superstition a hallmark of their faith. It's honestly difficult to practice these faiths without employing this idea of superstition. Hell belief, for example, amounts to fear of their deity. Their opposition to gay marriage is also arguably rooted in the same fear of their deity, such that they think that their superstition needs to be applied to others that do not hold it, taking a step further than even Theophrastus' superstitious man. So thinking further into this, any policy from Abrahamics on the regulation of harmless human behavior is based on this idea of superstition. So when your fear of hell prevents you from embracing your sexuality, honestly seeking spirituality in another tradition or no tradition, or seeking help for mental illness, your superstition is not only impeded on you, but it's abusing you. And worse, when you try to prevent others from doing these things, your superstition now starts to abuse others. I'll speak to the Christian image of this because I'm an ex-Christian. This idea of superstition plagues especially evangelical Christianity, making us afraid of our own minds, reinforcing this idea that we are fallen, that our instincts are impure. The fear of the Christian God and judgment that he might exact on you for being who you are in ways that do not harm others or yourself is a debilitating feeling, and it's difficult to overcome even after leaving the faith. But let's turn our attention a little bit, because superstition appears in pagan faiths as well, as Theophrastus points out. Ritual engagement with the gods and reciprocity with deity is meant to enhance our relationship with spiritual experience. But too quickly, we can become slaves to ritual. Theophrastus's portrait is meant to show us the unhealthy way of engaging with the gods, such that it gets in the way of our lives. An example of this is feeling that we are not sacrificing enough to the gods, that we must, in order to show our devotion, break the bank in order to build our altar, or do some expensive daily sacrifice. Putting your livelihood in jeopardy and stressing yourself out is unnecessary. Our legends in history describe simple sacrifices and daily praxis, as well as grand gestures and moments of desperation that wind up in both successes and failures. It's no secret that I have a lot of issues with anti-theism, this political identity in opposition to religious belief. And I'll probably go more into that later, but I think that a lot of them don't actually have so much of an issue with God belief. They say they do, and I'm sure they're being honest about that. But functionally, I think that their issue is far more with what I just laid out as superstition. Most anti-theists, when I get into a conversation with them and ask them why they're against religion, they often point to the harm caused by religion. And I think that this may be a way of discussing that in a way that's more comprehensive, rather than just attacking God belief in general. Now, some will say that no, the issue is with God belief. Now, I disagree, but that's their claim, and their hill to die on. Religion can be, and with polytheists it often is, practiced without being harmful to oneself and others, without oppressing and abusing others around you. Blaming all of religion for the harmful actions of the superstitious is like blaming all of politics for the harmful actions of extremists. We can be more focused on our criticisms, and I think that it's honest to do so. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This one took me a while, but I'm glad it got made. I've been looking for an alternative to the term anti-theism for quite some time, and I think that this one might help the discussion. So let me know your thoughts on it, and let me know if you'll be using this term in conversations going forward. But yeah, feel free to connect with me, by the way. I'm Ocean Keltoy on Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch, and I've actually started using the Twitch now, so you might see me randomly go live there. And so follow me on my awkward journey of learning how streaming works. I'm pagan, so I'm convinced that technology just doesn't work with pagans, so bear with me. Anywho, a special shout out to my new patrons. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. And if you want to support this channel, feel free to check out my Patreon and get behind the scenes posts for each video. But yeah, thanks for watching, and remember to find a way or make one.